are starting. Oh, I'm gassing myself out here. Let's put that over there. The sage is going like mad. Sorry, Pumpkin. Pumpkin's not impressed. So I am delighted. Long overdue. Chanti has been away. We've both been really, really busy, and we're really back for a long overdue chat. And it was funny when we were deciding what to talk about. Chanti was discussing with me some ideas for her channel, which are fab, which will be on next week. But I was looking at a subject matter of looking at this relationship issue, all sort of relationships, about when do people know when to stay, when to go? How do you understand what is putting up a boundary and what is actually sort of pushing everything away, and when to work through an issue? And it was something that's been coming up a lot for you as well recently, isn't it, Chanti?
Absolutely. I think, as I said to you on the phone, I'd actually just recorded a little 2-minute video reel just speaking about that, and definitely wanted to chat about that further. So it was really just an amazing opportunity when you and I were having a chat to sort of speak about this, because as you say, it's also coming up for a lot of people in a lot of areas all over the globe at the moment. And it's such an interesting topic. I was really thinking about it earlier before the show. What are boundaries? Let's talk about that first, because what is a boundary for me might not be a boundary for you. And, each person has their individual boundary. And one thing I've learned with over the past 3 years, especially with people coming out of SRA and stuff like that, they know no boundaries. It's like levels of pain, for example, that they've been subjected to, absolutely has no boundaries. So I think it's very important to realize that boundaries, firstly, are a personal thing. It's something that each and every person has to establish for themselves. And as I said, what's necessarily a boundary for you isn't always a boundary for me, and vice versa, and all over. So we really just have to understand what that word boundary really means for us as the individual.
I'm really pleased you started on that, because what I've been realizing from is great doing this channel, because we're all learning together, we're all evolving together, we're all moving through things, and when you see different reactions, it really can be, okay, what's the lesson in this? And one of the things that I'd like your opinion on, Chanti, that's really occurred to me recently is we're using a lot of these terminologies now, and as you say, trying to define them, but a lot of these definitions are not hard, they're not solid walls, and yet they can be used by that. And what I'm finding, it's a bit like when you learn to drive. So if you're teaching a teenager to drive, they get told to hold the steering wheel with both hands and turn it like this, and once you've been driving for a while, you're going like this. So I do find a lot of people can use some of these terms like boundaries, like narcissist, etc., for a projection of when you don't want to have a difficult discussion as well, which I think is absolutely fine, because we're all, as we delve and understand ourselves better, then we understand how to not only use these terms, but how to apply them in our individual lives. So sometimes you can start with no boundaries, then almost go too far.
And to the other side of the scale.
Yeah, the other side scale. So, for example, I've seen some examples recently where people have used boundaries in a way to avoid having what I would call a healthy discussion about something.
Exactly.
And it's all
labels.
Learning process, isn't it?
Yes. And I think, people right now are loving labels.
Yes.
If we just look at this whole transgenderism that's happening at the moment, we look at all these new mental health labels that have surfaced in the last 5 or 10 years. Half of the things I didn't even know existed until I really, as I went along in my journey, I had to go research what that actually meant. I'm like, oh, okay, it's exactly, often I'm working with people like that, but I didn't realize that was the label.
Yeah.
So for starters, I think it's very dangerous to give ourselves labels because we tend as human beings, firstly, to look outside of ourselves for solutions. We did a very interesting, we were actually with Bryce on my channel yesterday. We were doing the Asea code, and part of the initiations of, well, actually it was actually not this time, it was before. But one of the things that this book says is to find the oracle within you. And I just started laughing then, because firstly, then I made the comment, which probably didn't make me very popular, but hey, everyone knows I'm not here for popularity stakes. I said, this is exactly why tarot channels, for example, are so popular, because people have not learned how to trust themselves, how to align with their divine force, how to connect with their creator. So therefore, do not trust their own intuition or their own gut feeling, whatever you choose to call it. So therefore need to look outside of themselves to these wise people who've got all these gifts for the answers. We just have to look to see where the trends in the world are going, to see how people feel about themselves, right? So immediately when you are giving your power away, when you are believing what someone else says is gospel because you don't know the answer, immediately you are denying yourself your own boundary. You are absolutely abusing your own boundary by saying to the person, tell me what my future holds. Tell me what the country's going to turn into. Tell me who's going to be the leader, or whatever the case might be, just looking at the last few years. So immediately, and then when that person's wrong, God forbid they're wrong, then they get completely hammered as being a fake and a charlatan and God knows what all else. I look at this and I chuckle, and make no mistake, I have no issue with tarot, okay? I grew up where my grandmother was a tarot reader. I read the tarot for many years myself, until one day, I was just like looking and I was like, I don't need the cards anymore. I was then connecting directly with a person. So the tarot, for example, is a beautiful tool to teach you how to trust yourself. But ultimately, it's a step for you to get to that place. So that was just one example of how we don't trust ourselves, how we ourselves abuse our own boundaries all the time, how we don't trust our own bodies to tell us what's wrong, how we need all sorts of zappity-doo-dah days and things to make us not die, right? We have abused our boundaries time and time and time and time again by giving our power away. And anyone who's heard me talk or done anything that I do knows always with the teachings I teach is that the change or the alchemy or the transformation occurs from within. Firstly, it's going to occur simultaneously, definitely. It's going to maybe occur slower on the external, but the internal is where the change truly occurs, where you click into that moment and you understand, where you align with your creator and suddenly you get it. Now that's the boundary you're searching for, because that automatically radiates, shows you what's happening around you. Your eyes are open, your nose is clear, your ears are open, you can sense what's happening around you, and you automatically know where to go, who to trust, what to do, what not to do, which car to get into, which car not to get into, which relationship is going to be something that is constructive for you as opposed to destructive. These are the sort of things, But it does begin with people realizing where they are overstepping their own boundaries, right? Which is going to manifest in how they are attracting, through law of correspondence, right? People who are overstepping their boundaries. So to look at that in a mirror and understand that that person is really a reflection of you, because where are you not A, respecting your own boundaries, and B, probably also not respecting other people's boundaries at the same time, maybe not this person, but it's like a push-pull situation. And it really is, it starts with looking in your own heart, in your own being, in your own spirit. If you are someone who has issues with boundaries in any way, it starts with you. Where are you disrespecting your own boundaries, no matter what it might be?
I completely agree with all of that. And I think, you know, this is a common message for everything. So let's get some practical examples for everyone, because sometimes I think it's not that helpful to people. You know, we can say, yes, it all starts with you, but if they knew what to do about it, they wouldn't be in that situation.
Sure.
So I think
so it's the tools. Yeah, people are looking for tools.
Yeah. So let's go to some tools about, for me, one of the tools I really like to do is say, how are you reacting emotionally to a situation? Because if you're reacting in a way emotionally that's not comfortable for you or other people, that is a highlight to me that something's out of alignment and need to take a step back and look at it.
Absolutely.
So give us some more practical examples, Chanti, where people are saying, well, yes, I understand that we're all a reflection, but how do I start to move forward now in my life to address this?
That is the first step, is to recognize that. You see, when we look at psychology, for example, it's very much a mind thing, and we can understand things from a mental perspective, how my family did this and blah, blah, blah. So we get to understand things in a mental, practical, logical way. So we understand, okay, I need to put boundaries now. All right, because I realize from my childhood this happened and that happened. So the first thing is to recognize that there is an issue with boundaries, and you're going to get triggered by someone else who says you're overstepping their boundaries too. So you're going to have both of that. So if that's an issue in your life, the first thing is to acknowledge. You see, this is where we tend to have the fight or flight syndrome, where we try and defend ourselves or accuse others, blame others, to not feel that we are the ones that actually can make the change in our own lives. Because we've given our power away so much. Again, look at just mental health. How many people are on some form of antidepressant or something like that, right? To cope with daily life. So most people haven't understood how to calm themselves down. They need a pill to do that. So the first thing you do is to realize that whatever chaos is in your life, let's talk boundaries. Let's say you've got a partner who abuses you, or has no respect for you, or slaps your kids around. I'm going to extremes here. Those are all boundary issues. Any type of personal violation, and I'm going to go a little bit further, any kind of sexual violation, any kind of personal violation, if you've had your home burgled, your car broken into, that's all boundaries. These are signs that there's an issue with boundaries, right? So we look for the signs in our life. And if the sign is not that blatant to you in that moment, as you say, how does it make you feel to be dealing with the person who's so overbearing? How does it make you feel to be dealing with the person who's so controlling? How do you want to react to that? You see, that person can't change your reaction. They're just being themselves. It's you that's reacting to that person. So if that person makes you feel bad in any way, stop and listen to yourself before reacting back. And ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why does this person make me feel this way? When have I felt this way before? And you're going to probably see there's quite a few times in your life, especially if you're getting on in the years, right? Which most of our viewers, I think, in that demographic, where we've kind of lived life a bit, we understand what that means. So if someone obviously is beating you physically, that's a different story. then you got to get out and you've got to physically protect yourself, right? I'm just talking about the normal everyday person's struggles with these issues. So it's really about standing still, saying, I recognize the very thing I'm not liking in you is what I need to heal inside of me. Acknowledgement number one. Therein, you're going to start, and that's what most people don't do, Catherine. It's that simple. Most people don't like to take responsibility for the fact that you are in every situation a 50% contributor. If there's two of you, you are a 50% contributor, whether you are actively contributing to the abuse or passively. It's always a two-way street.
Sorry,
so that would be the first thing.
Sorry, there's a delay again. There's a really bad delay. So we'll talk over each other because the everything's coming through a few seconds later. Yeah, no, I think just wanted to stop you there for a minute to sort of say, so when people are recognizing that in themselves, because I'm seeing it come up for so many people at the moment, then there's a decision making, isn't there, Chanti, in terms of then sort of saying, is this an experience that could be useful for me to learn as a lesson? Or is it in a situation I want to remove myself from? Is this a repeating pattern with a certain individual? Because again, we can see with the flight or flight response, we can see two different scenarios from there. And so some of these situations will keep coming up for us again, because we haven't decided to stay and work through it. And again, I'm not talking about here where there's physical or sexual abuse. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a normal relationship with friends or loved ones or family members, etc., where these boundaries are being triggered, because that's where I think we can go from one extreme to another. So some people run from all those situations, so they keep coming back and showing up because they're not working through it. And some people try and work through it with people that are just never going to be able to work through it with it. So what advice would you give to people that are finding themselves struggling about, do I stay? Is this a time where I should stay and work through this, or is it time to me to leave?
I'm going to say this because, again, with every person, it's different. But if you are in a situation, have I just frozen?
Yes, yeah, it's gone quite bad again, actually, for the last 5 minutes. It keeps freezing.
Myself back on again.
Just before we answer that question, Chanti and I were just saying, because the internet and electricity is so bad where Chanti is at the moment, anyone who's very reliant on cryptos, just be aware of that. You know, when you can't get on the internet and things, this can be issues for people. So it's good to have a backup plan for that as well.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my video back on, and hopefully it's going to stay now.
So far, so good.
I've got a boundary with this video. So yes, absolutely. And I think it's about when you have that recognition, and of course, if you're in physical danger in any way, you would need to make a plan then and say, I'm out of here. Get your support system, your family, your friends, whatever it is, you know, whatever emergency you need to put in place. Absolutely. For the lesser extreme situations, there's a, you know, I always say there's a
good old internet, you've gone again.
Beautiful verse in the Bible that says, be okay, sure. Am I back?
You're back now. So let's start from the bit again where you said there's a lesser way and then you disappeared.
Sorry, what was the last you heard me say?
There's a lesser way and then you disappeared.
Okay, so what I was just, I think, well, what I was saying, obviously, when it's someone that's been in an extreme situation, they've got to get themselves out and do whatever they need to get their support system. If it's not so extreme and it's really just a personal struggle you're having, there's a beautiful verse in the Bible that is really my favorite that says, be still and know that I am God. I never really understood that fully until quite recently, which really means to me is just stand still and drop, let go. Just, you know, what I really do is I imagine myself in this amazing space with my divine creator and just letting go everything. And let go, and then let God take it from there. So for me, that is a big thing, where the first thing I do is I do what I need to still my mind, because I have an incredibly busy mind and I can have all sorts of things carrying on in 10 million miles an hour. I've really had to learn through my yoga practice, through a regular spiritual practice, through breathing, through meditation, how to calm myself down in situations, because this is the time where when you're making decisions, when you're putting down boundaries, your greatest fear comes up, because suddenly you've got to say no to someone. Suddenly you've got to learn new ways of doing things. And the fear, the resistance that comes up for these things is so intense, which is why instead of taking a pill that calms you to cope through all of this on like this plateau that a lot of people function on, decide to change it, decide to heal your body. I would then say, do something physical, like maybe go to gym, go walking, take your animals. In my case, I always say do yoga, because I know how that for me has worked. You are not going to change the situation overnight. You never will. It's taken you 30 or 40 or 50 years to get here. It's going to take you a couple of weeks to start untreading, reversing what you've done and kind of unwinding the things that have been wound up. But it's a beautiful journey of moments, small little victories. You know, if you were able to say no to your mom this morning and say, no, mom, I can't do it now, but please give me half an hour and then I'll do it. That might have been the first time you ever said that. And that was like, wow, celebrate that. Celebrate the small victories. If you used to be used as a doormat by your partner, and your partner says, get me a drink, or where's my dinner? Just go, honey, I'm busy right now, but I'll be ready for you in about 15 or 20 minutes. So just these little things are boundaries. When your kids...
And then spit in the dinner before giving it to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Introducing a bit, in all seriousness, I know that was sort of joking, but if you're watching, husband, but you know, actually sometimes when you can introduce a bit of humor, it can diffuse the situation and sort of say, is this really something that deserves so much of my energy?
You know, and what's so important is writing and journaling during this time. I mean, we've just come off the 3-week Surya Namaskar challenge. And I'm telling you, it was incredible for me as well. And every day I journal twice a day. And what came up during that time, and just the processing that the journaling does, is incredible. So, you know, just to decide and write in your journal. You know, what I do is very easy. I'll write a letter to God. Dear God, do you know how pissed off I am today because of X, Y, and Z? Don't tell me it's your child, because I don't believe it. You know, so I'll really have a little rant in that kind of situation. So you write a letter to the person, or your guide, or your deceased mom, or your dad, or whatever. You don't have to give the letter. You write your feelings. You see, the first thing we have to do is learn to express our feelings succinctly.
Yeah.
As women, we are not good at that. We expect our men to mind read us, for starters. We expect people to know how miserable we are and the turmoil we have on our inside because we are so bogged down, right? We know because your face looks miserable. We know because your energy looks miserable, but we have no idea really what's happening on the inside. So instead of walking around like that and creating more issues, because now you create the silent treatment, for example, start speaking about what it is that's upsetting you. Start by writing a letter to your partner, if that's what you need to do. Never give it to him or her, but at least what it does, it puts it out there. It gets it out of here and it gives you an outlet. And before you know it, you actually want to give that person the letter.
Absolutely.
And that's the beauty of this, is that you learn to express yourself. If you can't express yourself with words, start by writing. So many people resist that. And I tell you, it's the most powerful tool I have found in the practices I've used over the years, is when people journal, they write letters. They don't need to give it at all. You can burn it afterwards, but it's therapy. I've done that a few times, and I've just said, I don't care if you read this or not, but it's therapy for me.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. So
I love it. And it's such good advice. And, you know, everyone can find something to write something down on. And as you said, if you're worried about it being found by someone afterwards, then go through the exercise and then burn it somewhere afterwards, you know. So there's loads of ways to do that. What about the other issue that I think is a biggie at the moment, which links into all of this, Chanti? What about forgiveness and being able to say sorry?
That is a big, you see, these things come in steps. And this is what I like to tell people. I mean, if you've this person in your family or with your friends and you've robbed them of their money and you've really done atrocious things, for example, and I say this because there really are people out there who have these situations, okay, and probably a lot worse. So they want to come clean. They want to like have a clean life. They want to, but they just don't have the courage to talk to the family because 10 out of 8 members hate them, right? So I will then say to the person, let's work with you. This is the time I say to you, let go and let God with no expectation. So you let the situation go and you decide to tend to your own orchard, your own garden, your own kitchen, whatever it is. So then start planting things within your own energy that makes it better. How do we do that? We do that by reflection, right? By reflecting on why we did things to begin with and understanding ourselves. When somebody steals and robs, it's not because they're evil and they belong to Lucifer. It really is someone who has an issue and a huge fear of not having or not having had. When someone when they have developed borderline personality disorder and schizophrenia and stuff like that, which is a big mental thing that people go, you don't come near me, stuff like that. Those are usually people that have been severely sexually traumatized or abused or tortured as children. So, you know, when you look at hardened prisoners, criminals, when you actually take the time to sit down with people, they all have an incredible story. So we appeal to the gentleness within ourselves first. We start understanding that we were little children that were also conditioned in our world. And it's up to us and our relationship with our Creator to understand, our contract with God or your Creator, when when we're full of pain and suffering. And forgiveness is something, and I mean, it's also very incredible. We were doing that in the Sophia Code yesterday, is, I forgive myself for this. I forgive myself for that. I forgive myself for not believing that. I forgive myself for not knowing these things. We have to go through the process of forgiving ourselves, because when we talk about, what the Bible talks about as sin, man is born into sin. Sin is really when we forget who we are. We forget we're one with our Creator. We forget we just, we're a spiritual being having a human experience, not a human being trying to be spiritual and find our way back to the Holy Lands again. We are here as an experience in our human form. And every experience is yet to be embraced, dark and light alike. You were meant to be the insecure person who didn't have boundaries. You were meant to be the raging person who didn't have boundaries with your anger. You were meant to be that. And until you realize that, you're never going to heal it. But if you are watching this or listening to this, that means the time has come where you can change that now. If you're hearing this, which means you can decide that I choose peace over anger, or peace over rage, or peace over jealousy. And how do I do that? By going back to the first leg of the alchemist table, connecting to spirit. In other words, your breathing, your meditation, your listening to, if you're religious, listen to whatever religious stuff you do, but reconnect. For me, I do my yoga, I pray, I meditate, I go into the garden. I just revel in the fact that I'm alive in this body, and I thank God every day that I'm allowed to do the work I do. That is the prayer I have. And anything that I'm not allowed to do or not allowed to see in the spirit world and other, don't let me see it. And if I do see it, then show me I'm not supposed to. That's how I work with people spiritually. I always pray and always say, like, show me what I'm allowed to see.
I think
and I will see.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I had a really lovely conversation last week with a lovely lady called Emily, who's an animal empath, and she's incredible. She's Swedish, just amazing lady. But that's exactly that. When we're interacting with any other living being, you know, yeah. It's a relationship based on permission and forgiveness. And what I sort of say is, you know, if you're finding people in your life that, you know, you might feel need to apologize to and things like that, think, well, what's the boundary there? You know, if this is a consistent theme with you, you know, are you the type of person that is open to apologies? You know, is something there that's stopping that? And this isn't all about, you know, blaming ourselves or anything. It's just saying, what is the resistance there that's stopping that being offered? Because, you know, when we suddenly realize why certain people might not want to have certain conversations with us, then you can consciously choose whether you want to use that as a learning experience. And if you've got really good friends, they'll be very tolerant whilst you go through that learning experience. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
We're not meant to. We don't all have the skills in our toolbox straight away. It would be really boring. We'd just be ready to die then, you know.
That's why I say, you know, when we learn to understand ourselves and we learn to forgive ourselves for our own wrongs that we've committed against ourselves, you see, we then become self-aware. And only then, when we've understood our own incompletions as well as our own completions, can we then look at another without judgment and observe their incompletions as well as their completions. So if I've been very judgmental before and I've realized how that hasn't served me, I can observe someone being judgmental but not judge them. So it's the same sort of thing here. So when you yourself have understood, you need to apologize. But in the meantime, you know, we connect with the people spiritually because, you know, just because, and that's why I say, having a conversation or writing a letter to someone in spirit form when they're not there is incredibly powerful, because you then connect with their highest self, which is much more open to their physical self, to hearing stuff. So I will often say that, and I use the Ho'oponopono prayer a lot.
Do you know, that's really weird. That's what I've just written down here, because again, a couple of weeks ago, Chanti, when you were away on your trip, I did a lovely interview with Jackie White about the Ho'oponopono. And anyone who's not familiar with that, go back. I'll put the link below about that, because if you're not familiar with the story of the Ho'oponopono and how it came about and how it works, it's just absolutely fantastic.
It's incredible.
You know, it's just another lesson to sort of say we can release so much by shifting our own energy. But you did hit the nail on the head with one of the things is you're not always going to get that instant feedback. So how big is your
Never.
trust there that these things are
Yes.
really great? You know, if you really believe it, you're not in a hurry.
And you know, but you know what happens? It becomes a journey. It's like yoga. You can come at the age of 70 and never have done yoga in your life, and you can't even touch your knees. But if you do 10 minutes a day, by the end of the month, you'll be touching your ankles. So you know what I'm saying? So it's that's the same sort of thing with you, with your personal growth. You might not get that answer now, but you're going to get a whole lot of other little ones that pop up every day that have one beautiful effect on you. You start feeling better. And remember, our feelings are our fuel. So the more we feel better, the more our energy changes and the more we raise our frequency, which means that suddenly my mother or my brother who I robbed 20 years ago calls me and says, buddy, let's go have a beer. And, you know, that's what I'm saying. So it's like opportunities arise, synchronicity starts happening, and all of these things start occurring. So you get the little bits that kind of like prove to you along the way that things are working. Your energy starts shifting, which is the most important thing. And Catherine, let's never forget, life is spiritual. So when we understand that the first thing we need to fix or shift or change is our spirituality. In other words, our connection to our Creator. When we are disconnected, like a tree that's been chopped off at ground level, right? I mean, you can cut that off, the tree's going to die. The roots are still going to carry on, right? But the actual expression of the tree is going to die. So when we stay connected and rooted into spirit, to ourselves, to our higher being, to our higher self, to God, source, your creator, whatever it is, you will always find your answers. And your answers are going to come to you through meditation, through prayer, through journaling, and through being aligned with your source. And it's like that moment. People say, well, I don't have time to meditate. Well, I'm so sorry for you if you say that, because even 10 minutes of meditation will align you, and suddenly you get that inspiration, an answer for a question you have, that you know that you have a query for. Suddenly your answer just springs up like a beautiful champagne bubble that comes from within, and suddenly you know how to act. So you first get your inspiration through your quiet time. Your prayer is your dialogue. Your meditation is listening, because it's a two-way street, right? Like anything. You talk, and then you wait to receive the answer. And then you act on that. So unless you're taking that time to give yourself a boundary, right, where the rest of your family and dogs and 27 cats and 10 kids and 3 ex-husbands or whatever it is, you see so many of us allow that into our space, and we don't allow ourselves, we're not giving ourselves the space or the boundary to align. That is your church. You don't have to go to church on a Sunday. Your body, your space, this is your church. This is where you commune with your creator. Yeah. This is where you're going to get your best information in your quiet time. So you have to start by giving yourself the boundary of that quiet time, and realize that's when you're fueling, your emotions are your fuel. You're fueling yourself. And unless you are full of good fuel, your family, your friends, your work colleagues, your whoever it is, are going to be getting rubbish from you. You're going to be running on reserve, and you're going to be ill and be giving problems rather than giving solutions, because when you're ill, you're a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, you know, we have to in this modern age of so much abundance of information, The only way you can decide what's relevant for you. Now, we've seen this whole thing, if everyone's saying, well, how do I know how to believe? Well, it doesn't matter who I think you should believe or who Chanti thinks you believe. We'll all have different opinions. I mean, all of us that are friends, we don't agree with everything each other says. We don't need to, but I don't want I don't want people in my life that just agree on a cardboard cutouts of each other. So you can learn from each other, and, you know, have different opinions about different things, different lifestyles, different interactions. But if all of us don't give ourselves that time for space and listening and quiet time, then you're never, ever going to move forward. And I think what we're seeing is that it's so easy to never have something playing in your ears with modern technology we've got now. And of course, even more of a problem for the young people that have grown up not knowing anything different. But habits are, you know, you once you become conscious of it, then you can decide what serves you. And we're certainly not talking about not having, you know, fun and distractions in your life, but everything in life is about a balance. So if you're getting these reoccurring themes that are coming up for you, then it's a good indication to you that you have to make some changes, and then you can have fun and exploring, well, what changes where, what's going to have the biggest impact for me.
Absolutely. 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 And it really does begin with yourself, because when you're in balance and when you're in tune, you don't need to put down boundaries. You see, in the beginning, yes, I understand that you will need to do that. But it's like, again, going from one extreme to the next. You might have been a do everything for everyone, and now you're going, well, screw you all, I'm doing nothing for anyone anymore. And that might not serve your personality. You might be the personality that really enjoys doing things for people. But then the whole objective is to meet yourself in the middle, where you know when to step back and say no, and when you know when you can step forward and act. So you find that balance within you, and just finding that balance automatically is your boundary. So you don't need to be putting down boundaries. You automatically have that respect then for another, to not consciously and knowingly overstep their boundaries. And if you're asking them for something, you know how to do it respectfully. And if they're asking you for something, you know how to accept or decline graciously. You know, it's not an offensive thing where we can't ask each other for things anymore because I'm scared to say no, or I'm scared to ask, or whatever. Communication is so important. And it starts by writing, and then putting the right, because writing is your practice, especially if you've had a hard time expressing yourself. It kind of gives you the words to say in the moment that you might need to or will be having a confrontation with someone. And we mustn't be afraid of confrontation. Most people think confrontation is negative. They think confrontation is shouting and screaming and fists flying. Not at all. Confrontation is really just confronting something that you know you need to be doing, and then doing it. Whether it's confronting your bank manager, your child, your boss, your whatever, you do so and say, okay, I need a moment to talk. We talk about this, you know. So there's lots of different ways of doing things. And when we learn how to speak with each other and understand each other and listen to the other person, there's no need to put down boundaries.
Yeah. So let us know what you think about this. You know, what's coming up for you. Share your experiences if you feel comfortable to below. And because the great thing is everyone's got a tip that's going to work for something else. We're all different. We're all individuals with different personalities. We've got different things showing up for us. There might be some common themes, but, you know, do share, because there's amazing how many times someone thinks, oh, yeah, that's a really good idea, or I haven't actually tried that first. And the final thing for me, Chanti, is saying before you journal, it's really good to sort of tune in with your body and see how you're feeling physically. You know, have you got persistent cough? Have you got a bad tummy? Have you got achy knees or something? Because quite often, when you then go through that journaling experience and let it out, you'd be amazed how quickly sometimes your physical body can shift as well.
Absolutely.
another little tip. I find that quite fun to see, and just seeing, it's really encouraging, because when you see how you can shift things quite simply, or sometimes, other times it's going to take longer. But have a bit of fun with it, experiment and see what works for you. Anything else
I
that you
agree.
need to finish with?
I think really, in every area of life, I think it is such an important thing, especially now. Energies are changing, the world is changing. We don't even have to mention that anymore. We know that. It's like almost like we're at the time where we're in the bottleneck or heading towards the bottleneck. All kind of timelines are coming together at this point. So yes, I know that it's a very crazy time for a lot of people. And I want to just say, guys, if you just take your time, take that half an hour, 20 minutes, an hour a morning, just to be with yourself, connect, tune in, write, decide to move forward and not be stuck anymore. And it starts with that, because from there, things will start changing. So I hope everyone will benefit from this, because really I know that it's very powerful when we start doing our inner reflection, and then we start taking responsibility for our lives on every level.
Love it. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed that today. We will be back next week on Chanti and Mornay's channel, Solutions with Aquarius Rising, where we're going to be starting off some discussions on something that's close to both our hearts, which is some of the darker side of humans' interactions with animals. And again, how, when we know better, then we can make different choices. So I'm really looking forward to that, Chanti.
Absolutely, me too. Thank you, Catherine. So awesome to be here. Thank you, guys.
For watching. Bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. My goal is to inspire as many people as I can to live their best lives, to stay curious, and to raise their consciousness and that of the collective. So to do this, I need to reach as many people as possible, and this needs your help. If you feel drawn, would you be willing to share your favourite episode with 5 different people? This helps us spread the word, and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. If you feel drawn to do that, I will be very, very grateful. All the links and discount codes where applicable for all the products that I support are on my 2 websites, catherineedwards.life and catherineedwardsacademy.com. All of the products are personally tried and tested by me, my family, and my clients. And finally, please do press the follow or subscribe button, depending which platform you're listening on. And above all, stay curious and stay free.